Imagine the ubiquitous digitalization of our lives. It just may be closer than you think. Innovative, scalable, and practical identification management technology increases security and convenience while protecting assets, building accountability, and establishing trust for governments, business, and consumers around the world. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, June 3rd, 2014, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. I'm your guest host, Frank Baia. Next generation, intrinsic human recognition. Up to the Tech Talk M2SYS. Having spent over a decade learning the identification management industry, they have designed and engineered solutions that already provide secure, convenient identification for safety, easy interaction, and transaction in hundreds of countries around the globe. From government projects with millions of records and thousands of devices, to public safety and military endeavors, to the identification in healthcare and financial services, as well as other industries. We go inside the world of biometric identification technology and speak with M2SYS technology founder and CEO Mizan Rahman, recently recognized as Technology Innovator of the Year by InfoWorld and awarded the prestigious honor of being recognized as a Georgia Top 40 Most Innovative Company by TAG. Mizan oversees the strategic and operational interests of the company worldwide, where he combines his software engineering experience and entrepreneurial leadership with comprehensive international market intelligence to solve customer problems through identity, solution, ingenuity. The digitalization of our lives, it is closer than you think. Find out more as we Tech Talk biometric technology today and beyond with M2SYS founder and CEO Mizan Rahman. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Mizan, welcome to Tech Talk.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Biometric identification management industry. I think a lot of us may be aware of what's going on as far as personal identification is concerned, certainly the whole issue of security. But obviously not many of us are that knowledgeable about this particular aspect or vertical of the overall industry. So let's start out with maybe tell us a little bit about the innovative technologies that go into this and what makes it unique as far as the industry is concerned.
Well, biometric has been used for many, many years, mostly by government for law enforcement purposes. But, the greater impact of such technology is, in short, what is biometric? Biometrics is basically looking at different human characteristics to identify people. So now imagine how can we use it every day in our lives. And that's what M2SYS have done really well, took this technology and a lot of innovation around it and make it usable in everyday life. So, people can interact with device and surroundings, digital surroundings much more fluidly. So, say you are using your cell phone or you are interacting with any digital media, for instance, your laptop or any other devices, and instead of providing your ID and password, you just can present yourself and system can look at you, either looking at different kind of biometric characteristics. It could be your eye, how your eye look like, or your facial, the way we recognize each other. So computer vision using such techniques can identify the person. So that's what is basically biometrics, taking your biological characteristics to identify people. That's what is, in short, what is biometrics is.
Most of the time when I get an opportunity to talk to so many different CTOs, CEOs, so many founders and entrepreneurs, innovators, you almost have to come to each one of these things, I jokingly say, as a tourist, because I can't possibly be a subject matter expert on every one of them. But what I try to do is think about how my listeners would be in terms of getting a grasp or an understanding of what you're talking about. And I'm thinking matrix, something like, it's almost a form of predictive electronics so that you would actually come into a room or come into a retail environment, for example, and because of the biometric identification, it would interpret who you are and then determine what the messaging would be or what the device would do as far as...
Absolutely, it could be that extreme. I mean, it all depends on, because of privacy and security, where we are going to implement. For instance, you go to a store, and just imagine you are looking at this digital sign, like a TV is there. System should recognize who is standing. It doesn't have to know who you are, but it can also understand, okay, I have a gentleman standing in front of me who could be fall under this category, so let me show him a particular option or sale I have going on. That's also a biometrics, and those are the things that are coming up in the future, and going to be very, it's going to change everything because, everything is going to adapt to the surroundings. So based on who the data is being presented to is automatically being customized based on what kind of person is standing in front of you. So that's one extreme. Another extreme
go ahead. I was going to say extreme, but I'm thinking more and more about how we went through this whole process of structured and unstructured data, and we moved into analytics, and now we've got these predictive analytic capabilities. In reality, the identification management systems, these biometric systems that you're talking about, are how that data will be deployed in some fashion or another.
You're right. Extreme is not the right way to say it, but what happened is sometimes people interpret them differently. For instance, if a store, you walk into a store and they can analyze saying, okay, I have a gentleman with this kind of characteristics. System doesn't know who you are, but system has a general sense of the person walked in and present the data based on this recommender system. We have all the big data analytics and present the data. Of course, there is no privacy violation whatsoever, but I think there is a education need to happen that people need to understand. System is not really recognizing you. Only system is doing understanding, okay, I have a person with the general ranges of classification, and I can present those information. For example, if you and me, like say, we are in a mall, and we are looking at hundreds of thousands of people, we don't know all these people, but just looking at someone, we know, okay, here's a female, age is about 28, Caucasian, she has a different hairstyle, she may like this product. So it's a those kind of system you will see in the future is coming out very fast, and that's what we are very excited about.
Well, that's an interesting perspective on confidentiality, because I think as we go through the evolution of all of this type of new technologies and the use of data and information, in reality what you're saying is that you can have the data and the biometric technologies can interpret that data and respond to it, yet not necessarily know specifically who you are.
Absolutely.
That's an interesting way to look at as far as just confidentiality is concerned. Talk a little bit about deployment, though. As far as outside of the United States, what's the impact as far as some of the key deployments that you have? You're a multinational company, so we're not just talking about the U.S. And how are they impacting their environments where they're deployed?
Well, so outside of the U.S., we have about clients in over 100 countries. We have done a lot of private sector projects, a lot of government projects. For instance, we are working on this huge project in Turkey for their national ID system. Every citizen is getting a national ID card, and they are assuring that nobody is getting duplicate card, forging their identities, and our system is deployed in the back end to provide that system. We have another huge project going on right now in Saudi Arabia. All their patients for Saudi National Guard Hospital, they are being registered, and they will be authenticated using our system to prevent any kind of medical fraud or medical insurance fraud. We also are working with a lot of these developing countries to provide a secure democratic election system, so you don't have someone is forging their identities to cast multiple votes. So there's a lot of project going on all over the world. Microcredits in South Africa, in African nations, making sure people are not defaulting their loan. Or in South America, we have a microcredit program. Also in some of the developing countries, we provide the technology to make sure whoever is buying a cell phone they are not forging their ID and committing crime with their cell phones. So, there's a range of projects and systems we are involved with overseas. And it's very interesting how in those countries people are using biometrics to really implement some kind of sense of security, because in the U.S., everybody has we have a social security number. More or less, people can identify if something happens, who did this. But in a lot of those developing nations, their system is not in place, and biometric can provide those kind of ease and sense of security for those countries. And people are really using it in a many different way.
In a way, in many cases, they can leapfrog, because we're dealing with a culture, a psychological culture now, not an ethnic culture, that says, I don't want to change, or I've got a way of doing things. And in a way, what you're saying is that in many cases, systems like these will, I think, seem to be much easier to be adopted in an environment where they haven't evolved through a series of processes of, I guess, trial and error in terms of using some forms of earlier technologies that may or may not have worked as well. Let's talk, you mentioned about healthcare in one of the examples. I would imagine between fintech, financial services, and the healthcare systems, those are two industries that have got to adopt tighter identification and authentication platforms for their respective demographics. Tell us a little bit about the solutions you deployed to help those two industries implement tighter identification.
Yeah, sure. Healthcare is one of the major market, especially with all the new affordable care mandate. That's number one, because you need to make your data available to the patient from the website. So how do you know when the patient comes to the website? How do you authenticate this person? So you need some kind of identity. Second, it is very alarming that all our hospitals in the U.S., they produce great deal of duplicate record of the patient. So imagine a patient goes to the hospital and there is a duplicate record is created, and doing so, you are losing their old data, which could have information about their allergy, their past history. And if you don't know them, you could really give them a different kind of medication or treatment, and it could be really life-threatening. So we have it's not for security, it's for protection. It's like a health risk to a patient if you really mix up their identity. So we provide our technology to a lot of hospitals in the U.S. We work with all this. Our system is integrated with all the major EHR system. So when a patient comes in the hospital, they are as they are being registered, their biometric is also captured. So in the future, in the subsequent visit, patient could be identified using their biometrics. Or if someone accidentally try to create a duplicate record, our system will prevent that and provide this data integrity to make sure we are closing the gap in the system that allows people to create duplicate record and cause a lot of problems.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So that's the healthcare side. In the financial side, in a lot of developing nations, also in the U.S., we are trying to slowly getting into it, but in a lot of developing nations, they are using our system. So when the account holders are going to the local branches to perform any transaction, any kind of deposit and things like that, the biometrics is being used to make sure the account holder data is not forged. Sometimes people, because of the money laundering, they assume many different identities to create multiple accounts, but with our system, it will prevent it, because you can go in the system with only one identity. The moment you try to create different identity, because of the biometrics, we'll find out that you are not the guy you were talking about, because we already have you with a different kind of identities.
Now, most of the times, especially in the early stages of any new evolution of a technology, certainly in many cases they can even be disruptive, is the term I think that gets often used. But then slowly they begin to get more adopted and become more widespread to the point where they ultimately become ubiquitous. Let's go there for a minute. Tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, the future of biometric identification technology, and what could it bring as far as the kinds of stuff that you're talking about, not only in specific verticals, but when it's widespread, and then maybe go into how we can expect to materialize from a more, what can we expect rather to materialize from a more widespread use of the technology?
Well, you're absolutely right. this kind of technology, like there's a lot of product comes in the market, and then what is the end to it? When it becomes like a dial tone, you don't even think that phone line exists anymore because it's right there. So in this ubiquitous sense, biometrics is going to provide, because right now look at all the evolution of all the smartness of our devices and computers and surroundings, and we are the human, are the center of all this. Just imagine how these devices can seamlessly interact with us, and that's going to be the biometrics. So that's what we see in the future. You'll see, in the future when you go to your bank, they will be able to interact with you much more seamlessly, because system knows or has a confidence that this is you are one of their valued client. Or we are using our computers. We don't have to worry about these hundreds of passwords, because with our fingertip or touching something, every system knows you, and that's what is going to be the future. And more and more, everything we do in our everyday life and technology, we're investing, and many people are investing a lot of science and a lot of sophistication in our camera-based system. Every device has a webcam or some kind of cameras, and those are the system going to provide you such a seamlessness. You don't really have to think about, I forgot my password. Okay, where I have been. Everything will know you much more intelligently, and that's the future we can expect to see in a very near future.
Now, the other side of it is again sort of what I was talking about before, this cultural conflict of what I know and understand against change, and exactly how much am I willing to embrace these kinds of things that are happening so quickly. I think everybody talks, we say dynamic or dynamic fluidity, and then it's exponential, and now I think it's, when you talk in some of the biometric things that we're talking about today, it almost sounds phantasmagoric. I mean, there's almost a magical aspect to it. You must know that you've got some things in mind that need to be done in order for these deployments to be accepted and for the users to ultimately reach their goals. What are the keys to success for biometric identification?
Well, one of the biggest thing is, we are a vendor, and other guys are, people in the field. They need to think about this technology has to be presented in a very simplistic way. It cannot be a barrier that people feel like there's extra things they are doing, and so you have to really pay attention to a lot of human factor engineering. We should not find any complexity in our adoption, number one. Number two, security. People need to really understand and have the full sense that is, when your biometrics is captured or computer, they have your picture, there's nothing can be done with it. So the data we save are, handled very securely, or data are hashed and encrypted. If you have it, basically they mean nothing. So it's a one way, very safe and secure. So I think there's if we can do a good job of educating the population how this thing works, how it is handled, because I think that's very important. People are still thinking biometrics has a negative connotation with this criminal-based system we had for years. So they just need to understand this is a different kind of biometrics. This is not your traditional fingerprint. It's more of a computer vision. The way people know you, computer will look at you and interpret who you can be, or recognize you because of your devices need high security. So I think with the right knowledge and right integration of system, you'll see that a lot of major acceleration of this technology in our everyday life.
I think in a lot of cases with the workload, a lot of times people will say TGIF, thank God it's Friday, and they take the weekend and try to get away from all the craziness. I got a feeling with all the excitement and all of the things that are going on in your industry, you don't look forward to the weekends and can't wait for Monday morning to see what industry you're going to impact or change. Right? I think that's really, really exciting stuff that you're into, Mizan, and thank you so much for taking time out of what I know has got to be a busy and pretty exciting schedule to take a few minutes to tell us all about it today on Tech Talk.
I really appreciate for the opportunity.